That's great. That's great.
Okay, well, it looks like everybody's in, so we will get things started 1 minute after the bottom of the hour. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this engagement session on structure and finance as part of the local governance reform process. I'm Chad Peters of Linwood Strategies, and I'll be moderating the discussion here this evening. Before we get started, I would like to go over a couple of things. First, you should be aware that we are recording this session. This is because we'll be using the recording to revisit the ideas and insights shared here as we compile the What We Heard report, which will be delivered to the department at the conclusion of these stakeholder engagement sessions. This session will also be posted on the local governance reform website so that those who were not able to participate tonight will have a chance to see the dynamic ideas that I know you're all going to be providing. Next, while we are conducting this session in English, you can listen and engage in the language of your choice during this session. If you want to hear the audio track in English or French, you can click the interpretation button that's at the bottom of your screen and select the language channel you'd like to listen to. You also have the option of not following a specific channel and just listening to the live feed. If you are speaking, we would encourage you to turn your camera on and ensure that you speak clearly into the microphone so we can help the translators joining us here today. In addition, I'd ask that you, when you're not speaking, you ensure that you are on mute so that we can reduce any distracting background noise. Before we jump into the discussion, I'd also like to remind everyone that you're encouraged to complete the survey or send a written submission in response to the local governance review team. To do so, just visit gnb.ca/vibrantnb, or you can email the brief to vibrantnbdynamic@gnb.ca. We have a really good sized group here this evening, so I'm going to ask that you use the raise hand feature if you want to make a comment or ask a question. That way we can keep things moving along. You can find the raise hand feature through the participants panel or under reactions in the bottom menu bar. You can also post questions or comments using the chat function. Now, this is the second of our public engagement sessions, and we will be doing 4 this week. We've also already completed 6 themed stakeholder sessions that brought a good number of individuals and organizations to the table. And once the new municipal governments are sworn in, we will be conducting 12 regional engagement sessions for a total of 22 sessions at this stage. We've allocated 2 hours for this session, so I'm going to ask everyone to try and be brief and limit their comments to 2 minutes or less. This will ensure as many people as possible can express their views. If you have a lot to say, we would encourage you to make a written submission to the local governance review team as previously stated. To ensure we have an open and engaging discussion, we do have some rules for respectful dialogue that we'd like to ensure everyone is aware of. First, all participants agree to open dialogue without profanity, verbal abuse, and bullying. All participants agree to express their thoughts within the time allocated to allow everyone an opportunity to participate. All participants agree to follow instructions from the facilitator. All participants agree to treat all opinions and ideas with mutual respect and consideration, and all participants agree to have respect for everyone in the session. Now that we have the housekeeping issues taken care of, we'd like to get things started, and to kick things off, I would like to invite the Honorable Danielle Alain, Minister of Local Government and Local Governance Reform, to the screen for a few remarks. Minister Alain, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, everyone, for participating tonight. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. We had a great public engagement session last night with over 80 people. And I know we're going to have another one, an informative discussion tonight. So thank you for being here. I appreciate for you to taking your time to share your thoughts. I know your time is very precious, so thank you. I know doing virtual meetings isn't the same as in person, but we all know how important it is to follow public health guidelines Trust me, I know it. We have done extremely well in this province dealing with COVID-19, but we must continue to be vigilant and to make sure we stay safe. I hope you had the chance to visit our website on local governance reform and read our green paper entitled Working Together for Vibrant and Sustainable Communities. Public engagement is a cornerstone of this process, and we want to make sure that New Brunswickers are heard. It is critical that we give you, our citizens, a chance to have input into the opportunities. The Green Paper is not government policy. No decisions have been made, nor has the White Paper been written. Local governance reform is the process of changing of what we had into what we need and want. Some areas of the province are already having difficulty maintaining services such as fire protection and community centers. There has been a lot of work that has been done behind the scenes to get us to this point. Since becoming minister last fall, I've held over 100 meetings on local governance reform with municipalities and LSDs and our New Brunswick associations. And we're just getting started. We've just had 6 reform meetings with different line departments. We are having 4 public consultations this week. And as Chad alluded to, we'll have another 12 with the local regional service districts and new people that are elected to municipalities and to LSDs, advisory committees. And I can assure you, if needed, and if we can, I hope to meet in person in August and September. And if we can't, we'll do it again by virtual meetings because we want to make sure that we consult with New Brunswickers. While progress has been made in improving local governance system over the past decade, much more needs to be done. Our province needs resilient and financially viable communities and regions that offer high quality services in order to thrive and grow. But to accomplish this, we need to modernize our local governance system. Together, we can ensure that we make the changes we need to have a vibrant and sustainable communities that work together to enhance our quality of life. I know that we can have an open and frank discussion again tonight, so thank you for being here. Also, I would be remiss to thank my colleagues. I have 2 colleagues that are with us tonight. MLA Keith Chiasson from Tracadie. Thank you, Keith, for being here. And MLA David Kuhn is scheduled to be with us tonight. I'd be remiss also, I have my local mayor, Mayor Don Arnold, on the call too. So to all the mayors, councilors, and LSD reps, thank you for being here tonight. It's important that we have a great conversation, an open and frank discussion, which we'll have definitely some issues and some tumultuous talks, but that's all good. It's part of the process, and we want to make sure that we have a great and open, transparent discussion. So now I'd like to introduce our Deputy Minister at Local Government and Local Governance Reform, Ryan Donahue, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening on a nice Tuesday night. I'm quickly going to go over some of the details of the reform process. On your screen, you're seeing a high-level timeline that we're following. This information and a more detailed timeline is available on our website at gnb.ca/vibrantnb. We started the reform process last fall when we put a team together and started discussing this. It was part of the throne speech. We then launched our website in January, and in April, we began phase 2, which was the release of the green paper. We'll be moving through phase 2 through June, which will finish with the 22 public stakeholder and regional engagement sessions. We'll work through the summer to analyze the information and continue some of those discussions to culminate this fall with the release of a white paper. So a green paper is put forward to bring forward ideas to be discussed. The white paper is government's plan or the reform plan. It'll outline the policy decisions that government will bring forward related to reform. So I'll reiterate what the minister said earlier, that no decisions have been made. The white paper is not drafted, and we want to hear from you. And all of that will inform what finally gets brought forward to government for decisions. As I mentioned, we released the green paper in April. I hope you've all had an opportunity to read it. And if not, it's certainly available on our website, along with a lot more information and data around what makes up our communities, a lot of information about our finances in New Brunswick as well, and some comparisons with other jurisdictions. There are links in the green paper, for example, to the models in British Columbia, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. The green paper explains issues that need to be addressed through the reform process and provides opportunities on how we can address them. It's intended to encourage public discussions like the one we're here to have tonight. There are 4 pillars or themes in the green paper. Firstly, structure, regional collaboration, third, land use planning, and finally, the financial system that makes up that system. This evening, we'll be focusing on structure and the structure and finance pillars. If you have additional ideas or opportunities that you'd like to put forward, we encourage you to do that either this evening during this call or by email. We also have the questionnaire that Chad mentioned. The list is not exhaustive that we've put forward in the green paper. We know that we're going to have some great ideas come forward tonight, and that's why we're going through this process to get your input and your ideas. Before I hand it back over to Chad, I'd like to quickly remind everyone what services are provincial responsibility and what are local as it relates to our system today. Some municipalities have certainly taken on some of those provincial systems or services. The list on the screen is not exhaustive, and some local governments are providing up to 23 services to their communities or to their residents. I'll note that in the local service districts, the minister is responsible for ensuring those services are received by those residents, like fire protection, police, garbage, and so on. Also, on the financial side, the property tax system makes up the bulk of the financial system for municipalities and local service districts. But we also have the unconditional grant program, or the community funding and equalization grant. And there are some fees that are also charged, for example, on water and sewer. That's done by fee as opposed to the general operation, which is done through property tax and grant. So that'll form some of the discussion this evening. I want to thank you again for taking the time to be here this evening, and I'll now hand it over to Chad to begin the dialogue.
Thank you, Ryan. Well, as he said, now's the time for us to get into the meat of the discussion. So tonight's session is going to cover off 2 of the 4 pillars identified in the green paper, and we are going to put out 4 questions for discussion. As mentioned at the beginning of the session, we want to make sure as many people as possible have a chance to share feedback on these questions. So we will be asking people to stick to 2 minutes for their remarks. We thought about having an orchestra that would play people off like at the Oscars if you go too long, but we didn't think that that would work out logistically. So what we compromised with is if there's enough time at the end of each section, we'll circle back with people who have additional comments, being mindful that we've got 2 hours allocated for the whole conversation. Again, make sure you use that raised hand feature. There's a lot of people online. We can't see them all on screen. So if you use the raise hand feature, you're going to jump up to the corner of the queue here and we'll be able to hear what you have to say. So over the years, governments and citizens have explored a number of options relating to community restructuring. The green paper identifies a variety of options that we could apply in New Brunswick. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on some of these ideas, starting with how we address unincorporated areas. The green paper lays out a series of ideas establishing a regional form of local governance for LSDs through the current regional service commissions. This would have LSD residents electing LSD representatives to serve on the RSC board, giving those living in LSD's democratic representation that is missing now. What do you think of this idea? We'll open it up for discussion. Who breaks the ice? Vernon, please.
First, I'll unmute and then I'll start talking.
There we go.
I thought I'd be the first to break the ice because I guess the structure of the options appears to be A, favorable, B, less favorable, C, perhaps even less. I'm not sure why you'd bring up the one to begin with, first of all. I think in unincorporated areas like I live, the perception is that regional service commissions don't offer a sort of democratic function. And we don't like the thought, perhaps, and I don't want to speak for others, but that the democratic function is perhaps distant in our minds. And so I would move on to the option B.
Okay.
Unless we want to structure the conversation to stick to that at this point. I'll leave it up to someone else to chime in.
All right. Well, next we have Frank Jopp. Please, Frank.
Good evening from Mount Pisgah. I live near Sussex. I'm past member of the Regional Service Commission 8, which is at the present time abandoned. And I know a lot about these difficulties, and I don't think it's a proper way to go. I mentioned it to the minister before. I think there are flaws in the voting structure, where the municipalities or members who don't buy all the services have still a full vote, and it's not been weighted. I brought up the example of the town of Hampton, which is not buying any services from the Regional Service Commission 8, no garbage, no building collection, no planning, and their vote is weighted the same than everybody else's. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. I think we also saw Wayne McQuarrie. Did you have your hand up earlier?
Yes, you said representation on the RSCs. Well, we already have that. So what difference is that going to make now? Why are you reoffering? We already have it, not that we do anything.
Okay.
Because all the RSC, as far as the RSC goes, all the LSDs would have to stick together on a vote to overturn anything.
Okay.
Because we represent 2/3 of the population around here. So one voice isn't going to make a difference. They'd all have to stick together.
Great. Thank you, Wayne. Wendy Brewer has her hand up. Please go ahead, Wendy.
Hi, thank you for hosting the meeting. I am an LSD rep, and it has been in the past, it's been our experience that the RSC 11s would not be favorable. We currently don't see that they really do a whole lot for our region. So I would err that no, that's not an option. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. Any others? Vernon, please.
I thought I'd weigh back in to perhaps do a little clarification about what we're talking about. When we say the regional service commissions, and perhaps when we say local government in general, we're talking about services. And for some, perhaps, those even participating in the advisory committee process, they should know, I think at that level, that the regional service commissions are charged, they have the mandate, including more recent additions for economic development in our areas. And so it's possible that these disconnects are what we should be first of all addressing. That what had happened some time ago was the fragmentation of the continuity in local government. And that perhaps principally what needs to be focused on, and instead of a four-pronged approach, a way to address what the shortcomings are, even if that is a sensitive topic.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vernon. Tina Beers, you were next in line.
Hi, thank you for doing this tonight. I would like to chime up for the Regional Service Commission. I live in Kent County and our Regional Service Commission is very successful here. An idea that we are, I guess, thinking about in our area is with the commission, because it's very successful, but having the LSDs organized into smaller groups and possibly have a council such as the municipalities do, and then each of our smaller I guess areas would all sit on the Regional Service Commission representing the people here, and we'd all have a fair vote.
Okay, thanks, Tina.
Thank you.
Justin Hatt, just have to unmute. There you go.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't hear you the first time. That's why. Sorry. Yeah, I'm in RSC 10 in Southwest New Brunswick. There's 29 communities in our area, and 8 of them are municipalities. And I've actually got the data in front of me right now. Our RSC only has 17 members on the board, and that's how it's been structured. And only 9 of them are LSDs. I know the ministers have both said that there is a 70-30 municipal versus LSD population proportion, but in our region, the numbers are actually 64% LSDs and 36% municipalities. We've actually got a municipality with only 358 people, according to the last census. Meanwhile, we've got an LSD of over 2,300 people that is not represented at all on the board. I do agree that all LSDs should have some involvement, but that's not how the RSCs are currently structured to allow it. And so things like the recreation cost sharing that has come up with RSC 10 recently, which has been under some controversy, especially with regards to the municipalities, is something that does create a sense of bias in favor of the municipalities, even here when we are very predominantly LSDs. So really, there needs to be more of a restructuring, like more of an investigation into how the RSCs function and how they should function. But also, really, when you have municipalities of only 300 people, should they still be municipalities? So maybe there needs to be an sort of a review as to what defines a municipality in this day and age.
Thanks, Justin. That's some really good feedback. Appreciate that. We're going to go next to Guy Gru.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Great. I'll start off with my comments with one question, and the green paper itself is broad in its scope and presents a number of options, but there are a few specifics. Will there be a public review of the white paper before it gets to the legislative step? So I'll just throw that out there. With regards to the RSCs and transitioning to larger governments, there may be some challenges with the new infrastructure required by larger governments. And I think that having adequate representation for the people in local service districts is a very important issue that needs to be addressed. But much of the existing infrastructure that is mentioned in the paper is such as fire trucks, fire stations, police stations, are currently owned and operated by some municipalities. Many of these facilities and resources are closely integrated in the municipal infrastructure and cannot be easily segregated. In addition, there are many municipalities that have long-term agreements or relationships that are advantageous to their communities. One example is there's 9 municipalities in Nouveau-Brunswick that have a municipal police services agreement with Ottawa. And that doesn't expire until 2032. So that's going to be a factor as we move forward into any sort of rationalization of the municipal or local service governments.
Okay.
So it may be prudent to and less complicated to expand existing local government boundaries to include neighboring local service districts. And where the service districts are remote from any municipality, then you can look at the possibility of maybe establishing a rural municipality in those areas. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Guy. Appreciate that. We're going to go next to Sam Walsh.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm with the RSC 10 as well. And so I know Wade that spoke a few minutes ago there, Wayne, I'm sorry, and some others. So I would echo what Wayne said. We already have some semblance of democracy with our RSCs. And I found that in the last couple of months that this business of not having democracy out there is being used more of a talking point for people that are promoting amalgamation and so on. So it's not quite the truth that we don't have democracy. We have MLAs that we voted for. We have our service commission, and the LSDs do have elections, and not unlike some town councils over the years, a lot of people don't show up and don't want to run, but nonetheless, it is democracy. We do vote for these chairs and so on. So having said that, there already is some semblance of democracy there. I'm not saying there shouldn't be some more. Regional cooperation and collaboration of services and so on is not a bad idea. And I think some people would probably be interested in that, but we don't really see the need to join another community. Like, well, what's the advantage of joining another community and having them have to do services for us? You know, they're complaining now they don't have enough tax dollars to fund their own town. So where's this going to come from? And just in response to the comment about the fire service and the towns having the most interest in these fire services, one should remember that they do have bigger fire departments that are also helped by the LSDs who pay the towns for those services.
Okay.
So it's not this is not a free thing that the LSD gets a fire service from a town for nothing. We pay for it.
No, I appreciate that, Sam. We're going to have to move on, but if we have some time, we can circle back. Next up is Elad.
Hi, and thank you for being here today. Our concern with local representation, right, is one of the great things about LSCs, and we live in Gornish and RSC 11. We get what is tailored to our area. We get what we need. You know, folks out in Lincoln, they have streetlights. Here, we don't want them. We don't need them. It's bad for the animals, right? We're here starting homesteading, or people here with farms. It's a big issue. We don't need the same level of service as Fredericton, or as Lincoln, or as New Maryland, right? It's different, and it needs to be tailored for each area. What's really important as well is if you start amalgamating and forcing groups of people together from different areas with different needs. Right now, our area of Gornish, for example, has its own LSD advisory committee. Lincoln has one, and so do the other LSDs in the area. Each person has a much higher proportionate representation per person. However, we're not represented on the RSC councils. People have previously discussed this. I'm not going to go back into it. But we have a really good person representation on these advisory committees. If we start getting amalgamated into the cities, right, or into a giant regional area, right, we won't be represented in the same way. We might have one person representing us as a ward or something like that, but probably not just us, but probably Gornish and you know, like Lincoln together in one group and so on and so forth. So we'll actually have less representation. If we have more powers and equal representation on RSC committees, we can talk about that. That's more reasonable. But it's very important to note the differences between the small regions here, and it's part of why we have all these local service districts. Thank you.
Thanks, Elad. Appreciate that. I do know that we've got about 5-6 minutes here before we wanted to move on to the next question. There are still a few people that wanted to speak. I do note the minister has his hand up as well. Maybe before I go to the minister, if I can just jump to Mike, he's been waiting for a while. Mike, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chad. Mike Blaney, mayor, albeit in a gray area for the next few weeks of the village of Gagetown. I'm a strong believer in the Regional Service Commission structure. I agree with some of the comments that have been made from local service district representatives and folks from service districts in that currently the Regional Service Commission structure is problematic with respect to their seats at the table. But I don't believe that's inherent to the Regional Service Commission's structure itself. I think that stems from the LSDs not having legislative authority themselves to bring to the table. Just as we as municipalities, as mayors, sit at the table and have authority as the mayor, the LSDs would have to have either their managers or the minister himself sit at the table for equal authority. So to me, there needs to be some substantial changes to the structure of LSDs in terms of providing them legislative authority through some means of elections. And then that would resolve a large extent what I've been hearing in terms of issues with the Regional Service Commission. The Regional Service Commission, and I'll finish with this, is a very good avenue to provide collaboration, whether it's regional, local service districts or municipalities. Collaboration is necessary to start making efficiencies with respect to the costs that we're facing. The costs are escalating for a number of our services to the point where many municipalities cannot survive on their own, and we need to work together.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Mike. I'm going to go to Brenda Waywood and then to the minister. So please, Brenda.
Just a very quick comment. I really feel that if we are going to amalgamate in any form, before we do that, we need to have elected representatives for all the areas in the province. That's my comment.
I appreciate that, Brenda. Thank you. Minister, please.
Thanks, Chad. And just wanted to clarify Monsieur Grou's comment on process. And Monsieur Grou, you brought an excellent point. So during the process, the white paper is the final report, but we'll have a report which is called What We've Heard Comments Report, which is probably August, September, right before the white paper. So to your question, yes, there will be a report done up to make sure that people can have a say on the final report. It is within the process. So I just wanted to say that. Also, Mike Blatney and Justin Hatt, great comments. Thank you. And you're right, Justin, on a per capita basis, we have to look at that. That's a real good point. And as Mr. Blatney indicated, cooperation is what we're here to do. The status quo is not an option. And Madame Brenda Waywood, to your point, there's 236 LSDs in New Brunswick right now. There's about 100 that have no representation whatsoever. There's about 80 of them that have had sporadic representation. and to the ELAD a few seconds ago, there's about 40 to 50 to have a solid local advisory committees. So hence, that's the reason why we have to work with all these people, and we have municipalities that have elected officials already. So just to clarify that, and this is good discussions, guys and girls.
I appreciate that. Before moving on to the next question, Sally had her hand up earlier. I see she just put it back up. So please go ahead, Sally.
Thank you for hosting this. I think this is really interesting, particularly the gentleman from Gagetown who talked about the costs multiplying for municipalities. I don't think the costs are multiplying for the LSDs. So basically, is regional cooperation going to mean that LSDs will be helping out municipalities with money? Take fire, for instance. My house would burn down before the local municipality arrived to save it. And it's the same with a number of issues for us in the LSDs. We live at a distance. So I think you really cannot have one shoe fits all. You're going to have to look at the different areas. You can't have a municipality of 300 people and expect the local LSDs to support that. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Sally. That's a good segue into our next question. But before I jump into the next question, I do just want to make a comment. I know some people had a struggle getting in at the front end, and they got a message that there was a cap at 100 people. We forgot a checkbox, but that checkbox got activated. And of course, we've got 137 people in here now. So thank you all very much for that. We are, as I mentioned off the top, and some people may have missed that, the full session, the video of this will be uploaded to the Local Governance Reform website. So if you missed the front end, you'll still be able to see that. Moving on to the next question. The Green Paper identifies that there are 340 different local entities in New Brunswick servicing a population of approximately 777,000 people. Nova Scotia has only 4 entities with fewer than 1,000 people. In New Brunswick, we have 38 local governments and 170 local service districts that represent fewer than 1,000 people. What do you think of combining LSDs to create new, larger local government entities like rural communities? What benefits or disadvantages do you foresee? Should we also look at merging LSDs and other existing local governments, reducing the number that we have today? Why or why not? We'll open the floor for discussion. Justin, please.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said with RSC 10, it is a bit of a strange situation here because again, it's 64% LSDs. The idea of combining LSDs, there is probably a way in which you could merge them in some sort of amalgamation, but you would have to be incredibly careful as to how you would do it and then how you would have an LSD representation to the RSC board. I did send an email in the last couple of weeks to Ministers Donaghy and Allen about sort of like a regional community structure, but obviously it needs to be heavily structured in order to safeguard for the LSD individuals so that they're not taxed unnecessarily for things that they don't receive. And there have been issues with that, especially with regards to any amalgamations with a municipality. And like I said in the previous answer, we should be looking at whether or not the current municipalities should remain in their current structures, or if they should be downgraded, perhaps, because their populations do not suggest that they should be a town when they could be a rural community or something like that. So I think what's happening is the amalgamations with Nova Scotia, I mean, they're all regional municipalities, but people have said that there are issues there with regards to what services people pay for, and we don't want to go down that route. So I think structuring has to be under very heavy scrutiny when it comes to the process between now and September.
Okay, thank you, Justin. We're going to go to Bucktooth Farmers Market, but if memory serves me correct, that is Rochelle.
It should be Rochelle, but I couldn't get in, so she's sitting beside me. So this is Jeanette from Destination Southeast.
Okay.
We worked together, so I couldn't get in, so I came in. I just want to echo what Tina said a while ago. I think everybody's need is different. There are service commissions that work very well together. Kent is one good example. They're a really good example. And I think when it comes to combining LSDs, it has to be per people's need. I don't think we can make an overall mandate for everyone because everybody does not have the same needs. So within the Kent LSDs, if there's 2 LSDs that are close and they could be together and merge as a council and be better directed, I think that would be a very good idea. It would help drive different economic projects and tourism or recreational or anything that we need to move forward. So, but I think there's other places, if I look at more at the Southeast, where the Southeast Commission is a larger people place, like LSDs are little things like Beaubassin moving to like Moncton, which is a big city. It might be a little bit different there because they have different needs. So I think it's not one big answer, but it should be looked at per communities and per needs. The advantage that I see in combining LSDs for them to have mayors and councilmen is that it would engage the residents into coming out and voting like towns and municipalities do. They would have a voice. I think in a lot of LSDs, not all the residents know when it's voting time and they don't really elect their people. So that would be really great on that point. But again, it comes back to different regions and different needs is what I think.
All right, no, that's great. Thank you for that. I'm going to jump to Morgan. He has been posting in the chat that he's been having a hard time with his hand keeps getting lowered. So Morgan, if you want to jump into the conversation.
Sure, I guess I was just going to type my question, and I guess it was in response to question number 1. So I don't know if you want to keep going on your current track, or I can just provide it in the comments.
If you can briefly, please.
Sure, I guess my only comment was just listening to the other folks, basically from the LSDs, talking about how little representation they felt they had on the RSCs, for example. And I guess I don't necessarily disagree with that, but again, I think that's actually part of the problem, because I think most folks at municipalities and LSDs want to have their seat on the RSC so that they can advocate for their residents. But I think that is the problem itself, is that the regional service commissions are set up in such a way that we're advocating for our own small fiefdom, our parochial nature, I guess. And that for me is where the problem is that in fact the regional service commission is to service the region, but the nature of how the individual seats are allocated seem to be on the perception that you're there to fight for your own interests rather than the interests of the region as itself. That's my comment.
Great, thank you, Morgan. Next, we're going to go to Wendy Brewer. Wendy, there you are.
Yes, I am. I'm a firm believer that local LSDs should be working together to determine areas of interest to form a rural community or a much larger LSD. We know our communities best and our needs, and we need to keep them rural. And our local people know our rural needs best and can speak to those more effectively. Our RSC 11 is, it has 19 seats. Only 5 of those are LSD reps. So with those numbers, I personally just don't feel that we are represented well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Elad, you were next in line. Please go ahead. Elad, we are not hearing you. Are you still on mute?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, so when it comes to of these, if there are too many structures and stuff like that, and finding efficiency, everyone prefers efficiencies as an idea. But But again, we come back to the point of local governance being local, right? and meeting local needs, right? And meeting local representation, giving people who live here a voice. We moved out of Fredericton to this area to live a rural life, to homestead, right? We're concerned, and it's not just us, it's the government of New Brunswick is concerned about food security. We've seen this during this pandemic, right? There are articles out from the government saying that we need local food. We're answering that call, right? We're here to build a sustainable future and a vibrant community. Part of the vibrancy of New Brunswick and the beauty of New Brunswick. I immigrated here about 12 years ago. My wife is from here. Part of the beauty of this place, right? And being in this place is all the little differences in our different areas. And if you mash it all together, right, in the name of efficiency, there's something that's going to be lost, right? We love this place. Like, the idea of losing what makes this place distinct, it hurts for all of us. And that's why so many people have answered this call today.
Great. Thank you, Elad. Appreciate your comment. Next, we're going to go to Frank.
Thank you for having me again. I believe we are all in a different place in our relationships. And some are, as the Regional Service Commission, it's working great with the LSDs, and others it's not working as great. And so a blanket approach is not going to work. Our Regional Service Commission is at timeout at the present time for 2 years. And I really think the government, or the parent in this case, just let us cool down, but they're not engaging us in any information sessions or trying to bring us back to the table. So I'm extremely disappointed that we have a timeout as kids and our parents are not coming and saying, guys, how can we start talking again? Thanks.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, Frank, I just want to, so as you know, we met a couple of weeks ago, and we've been in discussions with the different partners in region number 8. And we hope to, once the elections are done, that we have our first information session soon and get it up and going. So I can assure you that we are on top of it, and we're working with the our MLA, Tammy Scott Wallace, and I can assure you that we'll be working very soon on the Regional Service Commission number 8. So
great, thank you, Minister.
Having said that, I wasn't aware of this.
Okay, it's great. Next, we're going to jump to Gaetan. Nice to see you.
Hello. Yeah, I think I just want to bring another point to the discussion. It's about economic development. We all know that, and I've been writing every week at the Acadie Nouvelle, that the statistics are scary for rural regional development in the last 7 or 8 years. And we've seen a demographic going towards the urban centers. And I know that everybody likes their little place where they come from. And I'm one of those. I came back to a little place called Valcomo. And so we always love that. But it would be nice if we could figure out a way how to bring that together so that we can have real economic development. Because the statistics, the forecast that we get from the Atlantic Province Economic Council is that the growth in the rural New Brunswick will go by 0.4%, and urban centers will benefit with a growth of 1.8%. That means a gap of 1.4% a year over the next 20 years. We already have a lot of issues getting labor, the workforce required to keep those industries. And as the Conseil économique is representing 500 businesses, many of our members cannot find the workforce to do the work or expand, and we have an aging population. So I think we need to put that discussion too. I think we need to preserve the local identities. I'm all for that, but we need to figure out how we can reunite economically from a regional point of view, because those services we have today will suffer over time.
Thanks, Gaetan. I appreciate your input there. Next, we're going to Guy. Go.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that part of, we're sort of morphing into regional collaboration as we talk more and more about this, but I think part of the whole raison d'etre for regional service commissions is, I guess, a partnership or shared view or shared resources for the benefit of the region. Unfortunately, at the present time, the cost attributed to each municipality for shared service programs is based on the assessed value of the properties, not on the cost of delivering the services. And this means that some communities with higher assessed values are paying 2, 3, 4 times higher than neighboring communities for the same services, which does not promote shared services. And you can actually get it to a point where if the costs are too high, that a community with a high assessed value will opt out of a shared service because on economic grounds, even though there may be a benefit overall to the region. So I think that's one issue that needs to be addressed. And if we're going to the table at a regional service commission level, then I think we should all be there as equals, and you share the costs of the services based on the cost of delivering those services divided on a per capita basis. Because right now, you know, charging one community 2 or 3 times more than the next community does not promote a sense of partnership at the regional service commission level. Thank you.
Thanks, Guy. Appreciate your input once again. We're going to jump to Sam Walsh again.
Thank you again. Brief. Just wanted to agree with a couple of people on one point that, you know, every region is different, so it should not be the same remedy for everybody. Where I live here in Bocabec, we're a fair distance from neighboring towns, as compared to if you looked at the St. John region, you have a more of an in-depth cluster there where you may have get more efficiencies than you would out here. So everything should be looked at. One other comment about the representatives on LSDs sort of looking after their own little areas. In RSC 10, where I am, the LSD reps are at large, and we vote for the greater good of the region, not for our separate LSD parishes. So I want to make that clear. So it may work that way somewhere else, but in RSC 10, we've been very successful. A lot of the towns have bought our services for planning. We've got a new recreation policy and so on. So we think we're doing okay. And I guess my point would be, if we have something that's working here and there's some problems with it, let's fix the problems as opposed to inventing something brand new. You know, we've got a good service commission down here. It's working well. There are, you know, the talking points usually are that LSDs don't pay their fair share and so on and on and on. So let's fix that. Let's find out what the problem is, fix it, keep everybody's identity the same as it is now, save your, you know, your rural communities and so on. And that's what, in my opinion, would work for us down here. It may be different somewhere else. So let's fix it, not replace it.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. We're going to jump to Shelley. Just before Shelley starts, I would like to just remind everybody the chat function has some great discussion happening now if you want to review that. Anything that is put in the chat section, we are capturing and will be contained in our summary report following these sessions. So be confident to use it and know that your comments will get captured. So Shelley, the floor is yours.
Okay, just a quick comment. There's been a few comments made on Nova Scotia. So that's where my family's all from. And when they amalgamated and put the service districts together, it was a disaster. Maybe in the big towns, in the big cities, they liked it, but all the local identities gone. They were forced to pay bills for services they were not receiving. They found that there was a huge loss of interest in helping be part of a solution, being part of the whole, the town, the city, the community, whatever they wanted to call it. And they found that most development money went back to the urban center or the closest urban center, and they got no development there. So I know that these plans are looking at models, and that's one that's been brought up, but that benefited the bigger areas. It did nothing for the local service areas. It was just, it's caused a lot of my family just to abandon their lands and move into cities because it wasn't worth it anymore.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Shelley, for sharing. Our next speaker is going to be Chris Spear. Chris, you have the floor. Chris, are you on?
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you hear me now? It's on
Yes.
my cell phone, so I'm having trouble getting it going.
That's all right.
The original question was back to combining LSDs, and the only thing that I'd say about that is that there has to be a realization that LSDs are still using the services of even smaller municipalities. And if they want to have a say in the future of the services that are provided, I think it's more an advantage to be combined with them than on their own. Another problem that the Green Paper brought up was that there's a lack of human resources and professionals that can run municipal governments right now. And so where are you going to get these professionals? That's a high turnover type of career. And so as you increase the number of local governments, you are probably going to increase the number of vacancies that'll be hard to fill. So the combination of LSDs, I don't think is a great solution. And I think that for their future, they're better to deal with at least some of their closer neighbors in urban areas where there's their economic development and other services besides what government provides, so they can have a say in that future. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that. Vernon, we're going to you next.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Chad. I feel like there's an element missing in the conversation about structure here, and I just want to draw attention to how it is that in Nova Scotia, the unincorporated areas, or their equivalent, shall we say, is not like the local service district, which would allow for the a town like Spring Hill to dissolve into its surrounding county municipality, which is a regional municipality. How that relationship is not exactly one municipality next to another, but one nested inside of another in a way, which is what we started from, just like Nova Scotia here in New Brunswick. And so I'm encountering in a lot of places, including the framework for this discussion, the inclination to move right on to the nuts and bolts, when what appears to be required is a consideration of what the structure is and how it is differentiated in different places. And I do appreciate this Nova Scotia comparison because it allows us to see that there's no way for an LSD to become a local government on its own. That's a ridiculous consideration. And yet in the Green Paper, the discussion includes a consideration of how there can be an entity of just 5 in New Brunswick. And that is, for whatever reason, compared to, I believe, a local government of 491 as the smallest entity, shall we say, in Nova Scotia. But what is this entity, this LSD? It's a fragment of the previous regional local government that took place as a result of the Edward Byrne Commission's recommendations and the subsequent implementation in legislature. So what we're starting from, unfortunately, is an extremely fragmented local government system in unincorporated areas, which has meant, and we're seeing this issue raised repeatedly tonight, rural and urban are what are perhaps the biggest issues. Is rural New Brunswick at the table in a meaningful way at regional service commissions? And what is it that we need to do?
Stop you there. We have to move on to some others.
Oh, am I up to my 2 minutes?
We'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next, we have Bob Hickman.
I'll unmute here.
Thanks.
Just given the opportunity to talk from, I'm the deputy mayor for the village of Dorchester. And for the majority of people that I see here tonight, it's good representation from LSDs. I just want to give credit where credit's due. The immediate LSDs around Dorchester are a good percentage of our volunteers for fire, for community events, and we all basically consider them part of our community anyway. I guess our biggest fear is the fear of the unknown. How do you bring this together and how do you make it work? I do believe there's opportunities for regionalization, and I'll use the one, my favorite topic is water and sewage. If somebody would, say where's the dotted line for a regional strategy, I'd sign tomorrow if it were within my responsibility. But I guess if we had to take over, let's say, transportation as a municipal responsibility, we would be bankrupt in a heartbeat. So there's certain things that we can do, and there's a lot of things that if we ever get saddled with, we'll want to amalgamate it and make it somebody else's problem. Dorchester is a bit of an enigma. We provide fire service to a First Nations, to a federal institution. 1 minute we're 450 people, the next minute we're over 1,000. And when it comes to police protection, we pay probably double what a comparable community our size pays. So yeah, these are all the things that really need to be addressed from a small community. And we have to look at our culture, our history, our language. I think in New Brunswick, that's a fair statement. Depending on the region that you live in, you have to be mindful of those things. People are proud of where they come from, the language they speak, and their history. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Yep.
But when you look at the Finn report, I think
Bob, we're going to have to, we've got a number of people waiting in line, Bob.
Yes.
We just hit the 2 minutes. We'll see if we can come back, but really.
All right. The Finn report is they want us to be less. Thanks.
Thank you. We've got 4 people lined up in the queue here, and then we want to move on to the next question. So we're going to go in order here. We're going to go Adam, Sally, John, and then Marion. So Adam, the floor is yours. But you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. I hope that didn't count in my 2 minutes.
No, we'll start fresh.
Chad, I'm the mayor of the city of Miramichi. I do want to just say that I'm speaking for myself tonight as a citizen of the province. The question is, should we merge LSDs and municipalities? Should we have less municipal units or 340 local entities in this province? Absolutely. I think it's really, for me, what comes down to sustainability. And just to share that the city of Miramichi, for those who don't know, is a city that is made up of 9 former amalgamated local entities, 2 towns, 3 villages, 4 LSDs, who came together in 1995. And really, so we've sort of, perhaps in our community, we're on the other side of this discussion. And from my perspective, it's made us all stronger and better. There's a lot of talk about identity. Here in our community, nobody has lost their identity. Within the city of Miramichi, you're still from Chatham or Newcastle or Logieville or Nelson, but we've shared our resources. We're pooling our resources so that we can achieve more together. Like, this is a city of 17,000 people. So we very much still, huge parts of our city are still rural. But when we look at our population here in our city, from 1995, when we formed a city, we're already down 20%. And the projections for our population are not promising. We're going to have to fight like hell just to stay where we are. And that's going to be a huge success over the next 20 or 30 years. And when we talk about, that's not just population, but also labor force. So for me, this conversation is about sustainability of all of our communities and the way of life that we all want to. If we continue to dwindle on population and we don't work together, we can't all continue to try to do everything, and we're not going to do it very well when we're in very small local entities. So whether it's representation and governance, but it's also management, it's filling out funding applications, it's talking to government, it's making sure that our communities have the services and infrastructure that they need for the basic necessities of our citizens. And if we don't come together, the population trends are going one way. We can't all keep our own little pile. We have to work together. We have to share resources.
Great input, Adam. Thank you for that. We're going to quickly move over to Sally, please.
A couple of things. First off, you're talking about population density. New Brunswick is the most rural place in Canada. So to compare us with BC, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, I know we always like to compare things in academia, but it's maybe not the best thing to be doing. First off, I want to mention regionalization. Quite a few people have mentioned that. Regionalization is where people pool their money. But the thing is, you can pool your money to have services, but those services have to be available to everybody. They can't just be available to the municipality that's at the center of it. So that is an issue for all of us in the LSDs. We provide our own water, we provide our own sewage. Right now, we are being mined for our topsoil, which I personally really find apprehensive. And that's because cities want so much topsoil around their housing development. So let's be real and realistic on what demands we can make and what we need.
That's great. Thank you, Sally. Appreciate your input. We're going to go to John next.
Hello.
Hi, John.
I am I'm here in St. George, and I joined today's Zoom, try to listen to some information that may affect our municipality here in St. George. Not necessarily statements from the government, but understand what is this all about. And I want to use my 2 minutes or a minute and 40 seconds that's left to actually say that the process that we are engaging at this moment is so, I heard so many words like RSCs and LSDs and all this alphabet soup. And I have not heard much about municipalities the size of St. George or Blacks Harbor. But fundamentally, if there are so much scatter in issues, I don't know how this process can actually, at the end, be of any use to anyone. I had hoped that perhaps there could have been some direction about proposals put forward, general proposals that people can comment. The fact that it's so open, I heard about food security, I heard about workforce, I heard about Nova Scotia. I really don't know what's going on. The question that I would like to ask, and I said these 3 questions to you earlier, I guess, through email, is what are the changes that the province sees necessary? What are the expected benefits that they try to get out of this process? What are the anticipated negative effects that people who know, who are in this business, can anticipate, and how this government is planning to manage? Just spending our time rehearsing alphabetical suits like RSCs and LSTs and Nova Scotia and food security and workforce, I have a little bit difficulty to see how all this process can at the end give something useful to move forward. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your input. And to close out this segment, we're going to go to Marion, please.
Thank you. I guess what I want to ask, because I read the green paper, and what I didn't see was, for example, the cost, like what would be the cost differentiation, between what we have right now and what we would have if we went whole hog the other way and amalgamated in whatever shape or form that was. The other thing, so I didn't see any of that, and I didn't see any, although it was alluded to that other places that had done this sort of thing had benefited. There was really no identification of the cultural, social, economic, community development benefits that were actually accomplished through this. So I think about the fact that, if there was some kind of clustering in any shape or form, especially with an urban area, that an example would be the community up the road, the LSD up the road from me, and I do live in a rural area, but the LSD up the road from me had a huge influx of young families recently because they want to build a vibrant rural community. And they have, and they've been extraordinarily successful at what they've done. And so how is this, or any of the proposed restructuring for political purposes, like governance, going to change? What's going to change in rural areas in New Brunswick as a result of the things that are proposed and the way that they're proposed? I think the thing is, what we probably really need to do is invest in rural areas so that we actually grow leadership, we grow vibrant communities, and we don't really have to necessarily do it through the governance structure, but we could do it through community development.
Great. Thank you, Marion. Appreciate you weighing in there. And that wraps up this section. So thank you, everybody, for your comments. I think that it's been really helpful. We're going to jump into another question for discussion now. And it's related to some of what we've been discussing already. One of the other options explored in the Green Paper is the idea of creating rural, regional, local governments, or structuring the entire province into regional municipalities, similar to what Nova Scotia has successfully done, where you bring urban, suburban, and rural areas together. I think this is going to be a great question for discussion. So here we go. Are you supportive of this type of an idea? What benefits do you believe will be gained, and what would the downsides be? Let's open up the floor. Hollis.
Thank you for taking my question. I like the idea of regional rural municipalities, but I have a comment through the, reading the Green Paper and talking to LSD reps and municipal representatives over the last little while. Would it be possible, because it's going to be difficult for anybody to make a decision on this, but I would like the government to consider the possibility of maybe modeling some of the different options financially for the various regions. So for instance, here in Southwest, if we had a look at what it would look like if there were, say, 2 or 3 different regional municipalities made up of the current LSDs, and given that the current municipalities stay the same, what does that look like for the residents of those particular LSDs, and what are the changes? Are there costs? It's going to come down to money more than anything. What is this going to cost, and what is the benefit? So would it be possible for the government to consider modeling some of those options out financially and just letting residents have a look? Thanks.
No, that's great. We'll capture that point certainly, and we'll suggest that back into our future phases. Next, I want to jump to Lee Reed. Lee's been on the chat and he's been having trouble getting his hand raised. So Lee, is there something you'd like to add?
I'm probably a couple topics behind, but on this one, or I guess the whole amalgamation process, I've lived through amalgamation in Ottawa, where 7 or 8 separate cities amalgamated, and there were great promises of great benefits. The only benefit we really got in the period that I lived there is our taxes went up. I lived through that in Halifax. I was living in Dartmouth. We've talked about firefighting service, and I live in a rural area. The fire department in Cole Harbour, where I was living at the time, had a couple of full-time people, but the majority were volunteers. And they had a lot of cohesion. They had fundraisers, they had dances and suppers, and they were a group. And as soon as they amalgamated, everybody looks around and says, well, who's doing the same job as me and making more money? So the city of Halifax had full-time firefighters. The volunteers didn't like that. You lose your sense of community when you start trying to make rural areas. We've talked about collaboration. People in rural areas collaborate. Their neighbors help them out. We don't need to drive 100 miles to find someone to talk to about collaboration. So costing is what I hear back is this is just a tax grab from rural residents. They're not going to run sewers out to us. They're not going to run sidewalks out to us. If I want a street light, I call NB Power. So I think the suggestion earlier, some economic modeling would be very good. And I tried to get in on the first topic, and I'll just say, about RSCs. We're an RSC 12. It's too big. It's twice the size of what our MLA's riding is. It takes you 2 hours to drive from one end to the other. You don't have a lot of collaboration. You know, we tried it with recreational facilities. It's too far, it's too big. And there's not, I guess, call it a common culture as you move from Victoria County down into Carleton County and you go further. So amalgamation has to be something that everybody wants. And that's what I was trying to get in, I guess.
I appreciate it, Lee. Thank you very much for your patience. Next, we're going to go to Morgan, who has been trying to get in as well from his comments on the chat board. So Morgan, the floor is yours.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I guess I just wanted to just respond to Lee's comment there as well too. I know amalgamation does come up with the issue of cost, which is regularly one of the arguments we hear in the St. John region for the outlying municipalities not wanting to come together with the city of St. John. But I think one of the impetus for this whole dialogue that we're having right now was the report that the province had commissioned for the city of St. John to say, for example, that the outlying communities actually the city of St. John contributes $12 million annually to support services from those outside communities. So taxes do raise, but on the other hand, it has to be looked at, for example, the city of St. John is forking out an additional $12 million for those adjacent communities to enjoy the services that they provide. So there is costs that go up, but on the other hand, there are people who are actually already facing that burden as well too. So that's an interesting point. My only other thought on the question at hand, particularly, elements that can be shared. It goes back to my earlier comment that we need to be thinking as a region, but not ignoring the local either. And so that each smaller region should have maybe a smaller local council that can address more of the local issues that are then brought up to the regional councils as well too, or to even have some of their own powers within themselves. So I think in a model like that, you get the best of regional thinking and local thinking, ideally.
Great. Thank you, Morgan. I appreciate that. Next, we're going to go to Justin Haas.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, with regards to the idea of becoming a regional municipality, simply put, I'm just going to say no for us in RSC 10. I mean, with all due respect to the municipal leaders who have presented on here, and to Hollis, who is one of the heads for the RSC 10, for us, where, like I said before, the LSDs are 64%, and they're not even equally represented based off their current populations in our zones. So it wouldn't be fair for us to become a regional municipality, because it would almost certainly mean taxes are going to go up regardless. I mean, I have mentioned in previous correspondence to Ministers Donaghy and Allen about one of the municipalities here not putting anything in the budget for their local arena, which they have claimed to the ministers was a collaborative project. And now that there's a cost sharing initiative in RSC 10, they're trying to exploit that to say, well, we'll just take it from there. And that correspondence was made public. And so it's not there. So the issue for us is that we probably need a different model. The model I sort of gave to the ministers was sort of a regional community structure, but one that is based around how the LSDs function, whilst keeping the current LSD structures in place. So there is a danger there that we've got to look at depending on each region.
Great. Thank you very much, Justin. Appreciate that. Now we're going to go to Sally. Just adjust your microphone, Sally.
Okay, sorry about that. I think a speaker just a couple of persons back really brought the issue to the fore, and that is the issue of suburban development outside of municipalities, particularly when the individuals who live there use services within the municipality. Now, that is an issue. You can have agreements that the suburbs contribute to the municipality, but an easier way would be to stop that suburban sprawl. If you made lots 5 acres of size, there would not be the incentive, the economic incentive to subdivide farmland. So you could deal with some of these issues with planning and with better planning and enforcement, but you're not doing that. Instead, there's this idea that we can amalgamate. Sorry, not going to happen.
Okay. Thank you for that, Sally. Next, we're going to Frank.
All right, thank you. For me, the question is, why do we need to have fixed structures? And yes, we need some fixed structures, and we have some fixed structures for some essential services like garbage and planning. And it worked in the Regional Service Commission 8 to a point. But I don't think we need fixed structures to have communities. I'm 30 years on the fire department, and we have 40 members, and each lives in a different area of our great parish of Stadol. And everybody has different sub-communities, and they're having small town halls or village halls. And we're doing a lot of things which in our local communities within the larger LSDs, and we do not need these fixed structures. What I always find is, as soon as we go into these structures like a regional service commission, it becomes always a question of, please help us with our recreation, please help the town with their development. I like to do things for our areas, for my LSDs out in my area. And we talked about farmland. For decades, I'm asking for planning statement on farmland. And I'm not the only ones. A lot of farmers did. The regional Royal District Planning Commission did that. And the province is lacking action. There's too much talk and not enough action, I believe, on some of these issues.
Okay, thank you very much, Frank. Next, we're going to go to Michael Tower.
Thank you. I shan't go on with this. Speaking from my experience on town council in Sackville, this spin report has been popped up several times, and they always want to talk about the super Sackville, taking this all the way from the other side of Dorchester all the way down to Cape Tormentine. And if we look at simple facts of just supplying the policing for that area, supplying fire for that area. Right now, we already supply fire to British Settlement and Westcock. We had Sally who talked about the fire trucks wouldn't get there in time. Where I live in town, I know friends of mine who live in British Settlement, and they would get the fire truck to their house quicker than I would get it to my house. Yet I have to pay for the services, and Sackville does not get reimbursed enough funds. We already supply fire and ambulance to the highway for accidents, and we don't get compensated back. So there's going to be a dollar value thrown in there. So the books for the government have to be opened up, showing us what their cost is. Even when it comes to policing right now, if the rural police are somewhere else and can't respond to Westcock, our police will go down to take care of it. And then, so that's another cost thrown onto us. So with the cost of roads, clearing them, the policing, it's just too big of an expense without having the proper compensation coming back. So, first bring up the LSD's cost and then give us the rest of the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So we've got about 5 minutes left in our time allocated for this section, and I've got 5 people waiting in line. So I'll just ask everybody if they could be as concise as possible. And we're first going to Bob Hickman.
Just one observation. It's my first term as Deputy Mayor for the Village of Dorchester, and I've had a very positive experience with the Southeast Regional Commission. They've been helpful with our solid waste, and anytime we need their expertise, they've been more than accommodating. So when I look at regionalization, I tend to lean in that direction. And that's as short as I'll make it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to go to Mark Corkum.
Thanks. I think we need to be careful about what we consider progress and moving forward in development. There are terms that we throw around a lot, but depending on where you are and what your objectives are, that can be very, very different. Like if you're in a city or if it's in a rural area. And I think it was mentioned in the chat, maybe the status quo is fine as far as services or development goes. Like, do we need to change things? Maybe on the cost side, but that's just on maybe figuring out how we can do it more efficiently. I think the topic of St. John came up, and they've previously amalgamated, and I think that has been cited as a big source of their current problems. So too much geography to try and pay for it. So if we start taking in a larger area, I think that's doubling down on something that already caused us a problem. And it's also been listed that, or cited that having a lot of suburbs is a problem there, but we list tourism as a benefit, that people are coming in from elsewhere and spending money in the city. How is that then a problem when people from, I'm not from Quispam, I'm from the boonies, but people from Quispam go in and spend money there and you don't have to provide services for them. So that should be a win. I don't understand it.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate your input there. Next, we're going to go to Mike Blaney.
Thank you, Chad. First of all, structure does not make a community. Community is made from the people. And I think with that, the fear of losing identity is one that it will not bear fruition. However, structure can help facilitate cost sharing. There were comments made about how the larger urban centers are looking at their sprawling suburbs and not contributing to the costs and using their services. That's not just an urban center issue. It's a rural New Brunswick issue. The Village of Gagetown of 700 owns and operates and maintains its own medical clinic. 90% of the patients come from outside the village. They do not contribute. We take care of maintaining that center for all to use. With respect to our recreational services, we have a fantastic recreational community, and we provide services gladly and happily. Again, the majority of participants come from outside of the community. So it's not just a big urban center issue that's being pushed. There needs to be collaboration and cost sharing for people that are partaking and using services in other communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to go to John.
Thank you. I want to drop one word in this discussion I had about RSCs and LSDs in towns. Recently, in our local chat boards, the word county came up as one unit of integration. And I'm from Charlotte County, and even within the town of St. George, there was some debate as to if that model is to be pursued, where we stand, because there is an Eastern Charlotte and a Western Charlotte, and there are some history, I guess some friction going back to 50 or 60 years, which some people consider it important. I consider it totally silly. But the bottom line is that if at some point the government sees the counties as a unit of integrating regional or local service or local governance, the whole concept of defining what are these parts of counties needs a lot more consultation than what would have been left at the end of the issue of the white paper or pink paper or whatever. It's a very big issue, and maybe it would require people to actually vote on it as to if they want to be part of an Eastern Charlotte or a Western Charlotte or a total integrated Charlotte County. So I just say that the issue of integrating local governance on county at the county level is one which is out there, and it needs much more discussion and debate.
Great. Thank you, John. And to close out our time on this section, we're going to go to Erin Mckenzie.
Hi, I hope everybody could hear me okay. It's my first time trying to do this on this laptop. My name is Erin Mckenzie. I'm a longtime counselor with Hanwell. I've actually been counselor since we incorporated. And one of the reasons we did incorporate was to fight off possible annexation by Fredericton. I think that forced amalgamation is a terrible idea, and that we know that for an absolute fact that if there's an amalgamation of areas, that centralized regions and more populated regions and so forth would be making decisions for smaller areas, because this is already actually happening at least a regional level with RSC 11 in our region. We have, I don't know if this, I assume this exists in every regional service commission, but the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee has the ability to override the decisions of local councils for what gets built and changed in land use planning. That's a terrible idea. And one of the reasons that I don't agree, and quite frankly, with the existence of regional service commissions in the first place, but that's a story for another time. But if we take that as a fact, because we know it's happening now, we can say that the same thing is likely going to happen if there's forced amalgamations in other areas, especially in areas that don't want it. You're going to have parts of the region telling other parts of the region what to do. And I don't think that people are going to want that. I think it's a terrible idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren, and appreciate you taking the time. You were patient and waiting in line there, as everybody has been. So I appreciate everybody's patience. We're going to move on to our last question. Now, this discussion tonight was called Structure and Finance. So we finally got a question with math. So from your perspective, how could the provincial government implement a fairer system of property taxation, ensuring a balanced system that allows communities to thrive, governments to afford the services they are expected to deliver, and property owners paying a fair rate? As you comment, think about how you would propose the province absorb any loss of revenue if your proposed options include a fiscal transfer to local governments or property owners. What services would you decrease or eliminate to allow your plan to work? Vernon, you're first up. Oh, you're just microphone, Vernon.
Well, we can't guarantee you the income, but we can endeavor to give any losses that the province might incur, like in the case of Canaport LNG assessments, where they told the municipality of the city of St. John that, yeah, you can change this assessment, but if we lose any revenues, you guys are on the hook for it, kind of like a Chapter 11 clause or something. So, but you know, the financing of rural infrastructure needs to visit the gas tax transfer program. Is it fair that unincorporated areas would have a pot of cash, maybe have access to some of it, but then where does it go after that? We didn't even have to do integrated sustainability community planning processes. The province did it for us, where every other province in Canada had to do a planning process to key in for the funding. Where our climate change action plan back in 2008 or something had done all that work for us. So we don't have the ability in unincorporated areas to fund our own projects. I mean, let's talk about us. It's unfair that we don't have an incorporated status to go after funding if we as a community wanted to do an ambitious undertaking, right? So why aren't we talking about this deficit? I mean, why are we going into all these, you know, combinations of pillars? I mean, what is the underlying pillar here?
Great. Thank you, Vernon. Appreciate that. Next up is Mike Blaney.
Thank you, Chad. First of all, my initial response to the question, as you stated, was wow. There's been decades of having incorporated municipalities, before that counties and so on, and we're at this point and we're still struggling with trying to find those answers. So I imagine certainly there'll be some suggestions here tonight, but we'll still have to work forward. I think that back with the equalization, the pendulum swung too far in that direction. And I think we're at a point now in time where we need to pull that pendulum back. There needs to be some decentralization of government in terms of the tax dollars that come from local levels, be it LSDs or municipalities, however that ends up, so that there can be additional authority and autonomy at those local levels in how they use it. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Mike. Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Guy.
Thank you. Traditionally, property tax has been linked directly to the provision of municipal services to the property. And this direct linkage between property taxes and the level of municipal services appears to be consistent across the country, except in New Brunswick, where the province imposes a provincial property tax. These provincial property taxes are regressive, they kill growth, they discourage investment, they increase the rental costs by hundreds of dollars per month, and most importantly, they restrict the funding that's available to municipalities. The province has other avenues of taxation, and I think the time has come for the province to eliminate the provincial property tax, use a more transparent form of taxation to recuperate those funds, and that includes the provincial property tax on businesses. This will put New Brunswick in sync with the rest of Canada and give municipal governments the tax room they need to fund their municipal infrastructure programs. And the one thing, I would be remiss if I didn't say this, this is the elephant in the room that has not been addressed in the green paper at all. And I'll just take a few seconds to talk about it. Municipalities are facing serious infrastructure backlogs, and the condition of our municipal infrastructure and the services that the people of New Brunswick count on is crumbling under our feet and deteriorating. And we're not even addressing it in this municipal reform. I think we need to talk about that. It needs to be put on the table, and we need to address this. And the province can take a leadership role in this. We're expecting municipalities across the province to come up with asset management systems and to manage these resources. And many of them don't have the technical know-how, they don't have the resources, and they don't have the funding to do this. And I'm
just going to have to ask you to wrap up if you don't mind.
Okay. And I'll just say that across the province, there are many municipalities that don't have preventive maintenance systems, they don't have work order tracking, and they don't have the corporate knowledge of their assets. And this leads to premature failure of assets. It leads to increased costs, and it leads to problems across the board that are related to this whole financing of the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to go to Justin.
Yeah, thank you. You said this was a math question, and I happen to have a PhD in math, so I could go on forever on this topic, but I won't. But basically, like I said before, there have been issues in our area with current municipalities exploiting systems that are already in place in order to get funding when they will not put such funding within their own budget anyway. So the issue at hand is really not about how we're going to budget it. It's really how we're going to hold any communities, any amalgamated municipalities, whatever it is we have. How are we going to hold those people accountable? How is the government going to put safeguards in place so that the individuals in each community, whether it be in a current LSD or any municipality, how are those individuals going to be safeguarded from any sort of attempts from municipalities, present or future, when it comes to exploiting systems? And this might be something where we have our current RSCs, maybe we have to really look at how we restructure the RSCs in terms of responsibilities, but also in terms of who's there. So the RSCs, we really need to look at how we restructure that whole thing from the ground up.
Great. Thank you very much, Justin. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to Sam.
Thank you. I won't try to answer any math questions, but it seems like the question is asking, you know, should some sort of tax or some semblance of tax collection be downloaded to communities from central government right now. Some of the talking points on this green paper and the lead up to it had to do with duplication and efficiencies. So I fail to see how having a finance department that's all, you know, in place with their infrastructure and their employees and their human resources and all that, how downloading that to, you know, 50 different municipalities or regional service commissions, whatever, would have any effect on efficiencies or duplication. Doesn't seem right to me that would save any money. And then we're also back into a possible scenario where every place in the province gets, you know, taxed differently to back up some of Justin's comments there. Just in closing, I just want to make a comment that not directly related to this, but having been as chairman of PROC in Southwestern Service District for the last 4 years, we do not overturn council's decisions. We only make decisions that council asked us to make. So people may want to clarify that. Any PROC that is working for a town is working for a town because the town asked them to do that. It's not mandatory. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate your comments there. Next, we're going to go hear from Gaetan.
I'd like to change the discussion towards growing revenue, because I think that, you know, we can't really cut our way into prosperity. And especially when we have seen little growth over the last 10 years, you know, we need population growth. It's one of the top 5 priorities of the government of New Brunswick Economic Recovery and Growth Action Plan. And at the Conseil économique, just to put numbers on the table that will be positive, is if we were able to boost the population by 1.5% per year, and we would have 60,000 new immigrants by 2026, which we need to pay for all the service we want to keep. And I want to keep those service, and I know my grandchildren want to keep them. So that would throw another 25,000 immigrants in the workforce. That's worth 1.7 billion of GDP. And guess what? $271 million that Minister Alain could share between government and local government. That's an extra $271 million a year. And if we want to grow, if we want to become self-sufficient, if we want to do community development, if we want to green our province, you know, all these things takes new revenues. And I think that one of the initiatives out of this process should be a provincial plan to really grow population and make sure it gets distributed in all areas, all the beautiful areas of New Brunswick. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaetan. We're now going to move to Elad.
I want to touch on a point that Gaetan just brought up. Immigrants. I myself an immigrant, and we're young people. You want to have young people contributing to the province? We have fiber 50 meters away from our house, run by F6 Networks, right across the street. To get it to our house, right, they wanted $12,500 and $400 a month for me to get a good upload speed for my business. So this is part of developing and running a community that appeals to young people. We need to have good internet service, and Starlink is bringing that in. The other things that people have addressed here, the gas tax money, like, you know, that is money that LSDs do not get. There are issues with, you know, spend for cities, right? Like, Fredericton, I'll give you an example, has a poet laureate, which is admirable if they can pay for it. They have public art, which is admirable if they can pay for it. We don't need to pay for it. We don't receive those services. We don't need those services. And frankly, our LSD has its books more or less balanced, and Fredericton does not. St. John does not. So stop spending money on things that you can't afford, if you can't afford them, and asking other people to pay for them. It's not reasonable. We are reasonable people. If people go to, you know, and I told this to the deputy minister on the phone as well, if we go to the YMCA, or if we go to a hockey rink, or if we go to a park, we are happy to pay for it. If road maintenance is such a problem, you know, and we spend a lot of gas to get into the city, it's 30 minutes away from my house to Odell Park. I checked it on the Google Maps. If we go to Odell Park and we pay the gas, and we don't get that money from the gas tax, and that's okay, we accept that.
We're gonna have to ask
money
you
to
to
go
wrap
into
up.
Odell Park. Yeah, so we're willing to pay for what we use. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Next, we're going to jump to Bob Hickman.
I think quite. Here. Am I there?
There we go. Yep.
All right. I think quite simply, we're not getting to retain enough of our tax dollars in our municipality. Just basically for an example, maybe we're an enigma, but I'll present it nonetheless. We have a federal institution of 600 inmates. And everybody looks at us like our street should be paved with gold and employment should be not a problem. Well, I can count on one hand how many people in this village work at that institution. And it would appear that our tax dollars from the 450 people that live here, our tax dollars are subsidizing that particular facility when it comes to water and sewage. No, I shouldn't say sewage, it's just water. The other thing is that they pay a tokenism for the services that we provide them, that being fire, water, and what have you. So they don't pay tax, they pay a grant in lieu of tax because they are a federal institution, which they don't have to pay if they didn't really want to, but they do. But the money is sent to Fredericton, they do their little magic act and it comes back to us, but my eyes still glaze over, and I don't have a PhD in finance, but I'm here to say that I still don't understand exactly how that, how they come to the conclusion as to what we get.
Right.
Anyway, I just think we need to retain more of our tax dollars in our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate your taking the time there. And next, we're going to jump to Frank.
All right, thanks. I don't know where to start. I have a farmhouse and I have to rent it out. And because I don't get the residential tax rate, the first over the first 3 months, rent goes to the provincial government. So I have to charge a higher property tax rate or rent for the people because of that scenario. So I think that something could be addressed. Assessment value, it's going up. More and more people trying to move in the rural areas. The assessment value goes up, but my income is not going up. Actually, my income is going down and my costs are going up. How can I keep affording to pay my property taxes? I know it's very difficult to freeze assessments, or I don't know how to approach it, but it's an issue. Internet speed. My internet speed, this is very broken up. Hopefully you can hear me better than I can hear most of the participants. I have 25% of the average Nouveau-Brunswick internet speed at my household. I did a ping test and I looked at the internet. So I'm way behind. But on my bills, I have to pay for improving the network. I think we have to have more open discussion about the services, how we charge for that. Garbage, I have to pay for it on my assessment base. Maybe if my house is worth a little bit more or my large farm is worth a lot, I have to pay garbage all on that, but we recycle, we reduce our taxes as much as possible, or our garbage as much as possible, but still have to pay for it. Sorry about the phone. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Frank. So we've got 2 people left in the queue with their hands up. We're going to hear from them. Okay, a third, and then we're going to have to move on as we're getting close to time. So next to the floor is Adam Lorden.
Thanks again, Chad. And just to speak on the financial component, so thanks for asking. 2 things. One would be, we need a fair share approach. So every New Brunswicker should be paying for the services and infrastructure that they use, even if that means shared services and infrastructure that may be located in a neighboring community. So we've got to figure out a way that everybody pays for what they use. Probably the bigger point that I'd like to make, and agree with some of the others who've stated from it, people who are serving in municipalities, is a larger portion of our property tax revenues has to stay in our municipalities. New Brunswick, I believe, is the, if not one of the top provinces that keeps the largest portion of property taxes of any other province or territory in the country, and then distribute some of it back to us, and the rest of it they use for their own programs and services. Infrastructure, I think, is a really important part of this discussion, because, as was kind of referenced by others, we're running huge infrastructure deficits in our community, and we have to apply and beg and do whatever we can, and take years to lobby federal and provincial governments, in this case provincial, for funding support so that we can replace our existing infrastructure in our community. So why they're taking it and then making us beg for it, when really we should be empowered as municipalities to look after our own destiny and the sustainability of our own infrastructure. So that really hopefully is going to be one of the outcomes, is that more of that revenue will stay in our communities and allow us to have more control over our own infrastructure future.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to go to Sally.
Okay, Gatian was correct. We have to have economic development. However, we forget about agriculture. We do not support local agriculture in this province. We support industrial agriculture. We support the use of crown lands by large processors. We don't use those products to help small people to generate money where they're living. And that is really important. We have to do that. Secondly, I would mention one thing that nobody has mentioned here tonight, and that was the federal government cut transfer payments and made it per capita. And New Brunswick has really suffered because of that. And that's something we should take up with the federal government that might have an effect on our overall finances. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. And to close out this section, we're going to go to Michael Tower.
Thank you. You do want to respond to me. I'll keep mine brief. I think that we have to find a fair way of doing the property assessments, which would help communities and also help the people. When you have an assessment on a 2-bedroom bungalow that is higher than the assessment on a 4-bedroom bungalow or a 4-bedroom house, 2-story, there's a problem with the system. And we have a place that was taxed at $480,000. The house sold for $570,000, and the assessment fell down to $390,000. So there's really a problem in the assessment process, which can help house owners, but can also, those who can afford the big houses can pay more of their fair tax, which links into, the LSTs don't like to hear it, they should have their tax level raised up so that you can help the municipalities that feed service to them. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. That brings us to the end of our 4 questions. And before we wrap things up, I'm going to ask Minister Alain to come back to the screen and say some closing remarks. Minister.
Well, thank you everyone for taking part in our virtual sessions tonight. There's been lots of great discussion and positive ideas that were brought forward by you tonight. I just can tell you that to Sally, I think you're totally right. We need better land use planning. It's one of our 4 pillars. I called it the 3 Fs: farming, forestry, and fisheries made New Brunswick. We have to continue and exploit those that as economic development sectors. I think farming is what made New Brunswick. So I totally agree with you. And I think to ELADs, we want to make sure that people stay in the food production. As we know, New Brunswickers produce 3%. Only 3% of its food sustainability, and we need to our objectives through agriculture is to bring it to 10. So we have to make a statement on that we are going to protect our farmers, protect our forestry, and making sure that our fisheries have held the tools. So thank you for those comments, Sally. Again, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we want to transform New Brunswick. We want to modernize, I think, New Brunswick. We want to make sure that we have had a provincial municipal relationship for the last 60 years, which is the same structure. So we need to move on to make sure that we evolve and to make sure that we are ready for the 21st century. Our first and foremost objective is to make sure that we bring democracy back to 30% of New Brunswickers that don't have it. Prior to 1967, 100% of New Brunswickers had access to democracy. We want to bring that in a more formal way with our elections New Brunswick apparatus. We want to keep rural, but we have to make sure that there's no urban practices that go in rural New Brunswick. And that's the challenge with municipalities today, because we're seeing some urban practices go in rural areas where it shouldn't be. Hence the reason why our municipalities are fighting for their lives today. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a community project that's not going to resolve all the problems of New Brunswick, but our objective is to move that needle, to evolve, to modernize, and to transform. And for that, I have the confidence in everyone on this call tonight. So thank you for being on this call. We have another call for Francophones in French tomorrow night. We have another one in English Thursday. And I can assure you that through the CSRs, we'll be meeting also with our, in meetings. We have 4 committees working on our 4 pillars. So that's important for us. And I hope that we can meet in person and have more meetings like this also. I think as one of the individuals indicated today, that it's about collaboration. Mr. Blaney talked about collaboration. Mr. Gu talked about we have to make sure that we talk to each other. So on that note, I just want to thank you. And the reason why, and please do not hesitate to call us through local government. Ryan Donahue definitely has the gnb.ca/NB dynamic. It is important. We have a local government reform team that is working through the department. We have 20 of the best through the public service, which is working on with us today. So that's really important. Some people maybe have not had the chance to talk today. For that, we hope that you can partake in our next session, and please do not hesitate to call our department. And there's one thing, if I can leave you with tonight, that if we don't move forward with these reforms, we'll lose 3 things. And number 1, we'll lose services, we'll lose infrastructure, and even worse, we'll lose economic development opportunities. And I think to ELAD, I think that's the reason why we want to make sure we have new Canadians to come and see us. We want to make sure that people do traditional farming, as Frank has indicated today, but we want to see also e-commerce. We want to see immigration. Monsieur Gaetan Thomas, thank you for your wisdom and your vision for New Brunswick. So I just want to finish up with saying thank you to MLA Keith Chiasson for being on the call tonight. Also, I know David Kuhn was in, and all to the elected officials and our people on the LSDs. Thank you for your time tonight, and the citizens of New Brunswick. This is why we're doing this. So thank you for all, and Chad, it's up to you.
Very good. Well, some personal remarks. Thanks to everybody who participated and who chimed in, who posted in the comments section, and those who sat back and took it in. It's all important, and it's going to inform the discussion. I'm glad everybody was respectful of time, and we were able to keep things moving along, giving everybody an opportunity to speak.
And
so
Chad, just to Mr. Rochons, if you have any questions in the Zoom chat, yes, we will respond to them. So don't worry.
Absolutely. So those are all being captured and will formulate part of the what we heard report. So again, don't forget you can make your submissions to gnb.ca/vibrantnb or NB Dynamique, or you can send them by email to vibrantnbdynamique@gnb.ca. Again, thanks for taking the time to be here tonight, and we look forward to